Alright, next we have some mixture problems. Now these mixture problems can be a bit difficult, but they are very similar to one another, so the more practice you get, the better. So a laboratory technician is mixing a 10% saline solution with a 4% saline solution. Now those of you that wear contacts, you might know about saline solutions. How much of each solution is needed to make 500 milliliters of a 6% saline solution? So what we're going to do is we're going to give our variables to the 10% and the 4%. Why don't we call the 10% x and the 4% y? So if I have x amount of 10%, let's just say 200 milliliters of 10%, and then I would need to have 300 milliliters of the 4% in order to get to my 500 milliliters of the entire solution. So I'm going to have x plus y equals 500. Because I need x amount of the first one plus y amount of the second one to give me the 500 milliliters. My next equation is going to be incorporating those percents. Now normally 10% would be written as 0.10, but to avoid any kind of confusion or working with decimals, why don't we just go with 10x, this is 10% of the x solution, plus 4% of the y, rather than doing 0.04, now we don't have to worry about decimals, equals 6 times the 500. So those of you thinking that, oh, percents are supposed to be written as decimals, yes, we could, but essentially I've multiplied that entire thing by 100. Now we don't have to worry about the decimals because that can get a little bit messy. For these types of problems, we want to solve using elimination. That's usually the best method. You could do substitution if you wanted, but I feel like sometimes it gets messy. Right away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 6 times 500. I know that that gives me 3,000. Now, what am I going to multiply by in the first equation to get something to cancel in the second? Well, if I want to go with smaller numbers, why don't I multiply by a -4 so I can cancel out the y's here? So if I multiply this whole first one by a -4, I'm going to be left with -4x minus 4y equals -2,000. I get 6x. This cancels, and I'm left with 1,000. So that means x equals 1,000 over 6, which simplifies to x equaling 500 over 3. And we'll change them to decimals in a little bit, but for now, why don't we leave them as an improper fraction so it's exact. So that's my amount of my x solution, which is about 166.6 repeating. And that makes a little more sense when if we're measuring something out, we know about 166.6 repeating milliliters. So let's get our y. If I want to do that, I need to plug this bad boy back in for my x. So I'm going to have 500 over 3 plus y equals 500. So now we're going to do 500 minus 500 over 3. So y is going to equal 1,000 over 3. So essentially here's what I have. My x value will be 166.6 repeating, and my y value will be 333.3 repeating. So I need 166.6 repeating milliliters of the 10% and 333.3 milliliters of the 4% solution to make a 6% solution with 500 milliliters.